President Trump picked Neil Gorsuch. I don't know how to pronounce that, and neither do you. I haven't heard anybody say it yet. I've only read it, so I'll get it as soon as I hear people say it. We're going to go with Neil Gorsuch. Might as well. So he picked this guy, Neil Gorsuch, to fill the Supreme Court vacancy. And this guy's currently a judge on the 10th Circuit Court. He's from a long line of dyed-in-the-wool Republicans. Apparently his mother worked for Ronald Reagan's EPA, and she slashed regulations while she was there. You know, very proud. The family should be proud. You know, screw the environment because we're rich. Ha 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 ha. So he went to all the best schools, and, you know, he's a conservative pedigree, my good chap. So he was nominated by Bush, and basically to sum this guy up, he's Antonin Scalia 2.0. He's also young, which, remember, that's a big deal because we're talking about lifetime appointments to the Supreme Court. So he's 49 years old. That's a strategic move on the part of Trump and on the part of the Republicans, because the idea is, well, if we have somebody in there and we get them young, they'll be there for a really long time, and they can do untold damage to the country. But in their mind, they frame it as they can do our terrible policies that, well, they like their policies, but I think you get the point. They can be on our team and push for the things that we believe in. So he loves Scalia so much that he said when he heard that he died, he was on a ski slope. I'm not kidding. He was on a ski slope on vacation, and then he couldn't see the rest of the way down the mountain through his tears. I need everybody to understand that Antonin Scalia is one of the most conservative justices in history. This is a guy who said in an interview, and he wasn't kidding, that he thinks the devil is literally real. He's also hailed as this intellectual on the right. You're going to be hailed as an intellectual and you think the devil is literally real? Like, there was no hedging. There was no, well, look, I was taught that, so maybe, I guess. I don't know. Any reasonable person would have to concede they don't know if there's a guy in this place called hell that's got the fucking horns and he's all red and with the fucking tail and pitchfork. He's like, no, the devil's literally real. What an intellectual you are, Antonin. He said blacks belong in, quote, slower track schools. Doesn't get any worse than that. He said torture, totally constitutional. The Eighth Amendment protects from cruel and unusual punishment. How does that square with torture? So the guy, he's been so wrong about so many things throughout his entire career. He's just a horrible, horrible, horrible person. And I mean that. Antonin Scalia was a dunce, and he's not a good person. And the thing that drives me most crazy about him is he pretends like he's so principled. He acts like, well, you know, we believe in states' rights, so that's the conservative position. So the federal government can largely piss off and the states get to make their own decisions. And that's the way our system works. Thank you very much. Well, guess what? When you do a little digging into his record, you find out he's a massive hypocrite. So, for example, when it comes to the issue of immigration, there was a case where Arizona said, we want to protect our own borders. We don't forget the feds. We're going to do our own border protection. Now, the idea was under federal law, no, the federal government protects the federal border, and the states, you got to take a back seat on this one. Well, when this case got to the Supreme Court, Antonin Scalia said, no, see, if we don't allow Arizona to make their own decisions, then why are they even a state? So his idea is, yeah, states' rights. You got to go with the states. Let them make the decision and federal government piss off. So therefore, if he's being principled, when he hears a case on legal recreational marijuana or medicinal marijuana in various states across the country, and it comes in front of him, what's he going to say? Well, he's got to be consistent. Well, if we take away their right to legalize recreational marijuana, then they're no longer a state. He did the exact opposite. On the issue of marijuana, because he's personally against marijuana, he said, oh, federal government, what are you talking about? The federal government should make the decision. Forget states' rights. No, this has got nothing to do with states' rights. It's all about the feds and the supremacy clause of the Constitution, which says federal law overrides state law. So immigration, states' rights, because I want to keep immigrants out, and if Arizona wants to do more to keep immigrants out, great. But marijuana, oh no, states' rights, there's no states' rights. So he's a fucking hypocrite, man. But this guy loves Justice Antonin Scalia, which means he's not that bright either. The faux intellectuals drive me crazy. Now, let me give you some more specific things that he believes. So on the issue of Hobby Lobby, he, of course, sided the wrong way. Now, Hobby Lobby, for those of you who don't know, of course, it's a business that said, well, we don't want to have in our health insurance plans that we provide for people who work for us, we don't want to have birth control because birth control is so bad and so wrong and we're against it morally. So the Supreme Court heard a case. Hey, should the workers be able to have something that they want that's covered in that health insurance plan? And the Supreme Court said no. If the corporation has the religious right to say, us, the management and the owners of the company, are going to make, because of our religious sensibilities, we're going to tell you what you can have. So why, by the way, how does that, what a terrible precedent that sets up. Because what if you have, for religious reasons, somebody's anti-vax? They say, look, we're against vaccines, and we don't want our health insurance coverage that we provide to our workers to have vaccines. Well, by the logic of Hobby Lobby, you have to say, yeah, the corporation and the owners have a right to say we don't want to have in our health insurance plans for our workers vaccines. There's no end to this. There's no end to this. Furthermore, again, if you open the door to the ownership and the management at the corporation can hide behind religion and get their workers to do anything or to, have their way and impose it on the workers, why wouldn't a fundamentalist Muslim-owned business be able to tell their female workers, you got to cover from head to toe? Look, I'm a corporation, I'm a company, we have the religious right. You're infringing on my religious rights to force you to cover up. This is the logic of Hobby Lobby. It's insanity. The reality is, so you offer health insurance to your workers. I don't give a fuck if you have a personal objection to anything. It's health insurance coverage. And that's a form of payment too. That's like saying, let's say it wasn't health insurance coverage and it was just, we pay you money every week because you work for us here at Hobby Lobby. And then the person decides, I'm going to go out and purchase birth control or the morning after pill, let's say. Should the company be able to say, oh, well, I paid you that money, therefore you can't buy that with that because I don't want you to? No, it is their money. It's a form of payment. They can do whatever the fuck they want with that money. By the same token, if it's a health insurance plan, that's a form of payment. It's a form of benefits. It's payment for working for you. So they should be able to get covered whatever the fuck they want to get covered. It is insanity to say, and it is theocracy, more importantly, to say the company or the corporation or the management or the owners should be able to tell the workers what they can and cannot put in their body and what they can and cannot have covered. You've opened up the door to making the United States of America the Christian Saudi Arabia. And they're totally oblivious to it. They got no fucking clue. They don't care. In fact, they're fine with that. So this guy is like, yeah, let's have the management make the decisions for the bodies of their workers. The logic of Hobby Lobby is so preposterous. So he was dead wrong on that one. Then he wrote a book in 2009 about how euthanasia, so physician-assisted suicide, he says that's immoral, and under no circumstances should we have physician-assisted suicide. So if you have terminal cancer and you're in excruciating pain and you have 2 weeks to live, 3 weeks to live, and it's going to be nothing but despair and depression and anger and literal pain for that entire time frame. This guy says, I know better than you, and I would not allow you to peacefully end your life with your family around you. And these assholes have the nerve to say they believe in small government. No, they don't. They believe in it whenever it coincides with their ideology. Sometimes they like the biggest government imaginable. They like government to tell a woman, no, you can't do X, Y, and Z with your body. They like government to rush in and bail out Wall Street. They like big government because they like a gigantic, colossal military. They love the military-industrial complex. They only like small government when it's convenient for them. So here we have another instance of it. for religious reasons, I want to force you to suffer. So no, you can't choose to peacefully go. Don't talk to me about liberty and don't talk to me about freedom if you're going to tell somebody that I want you to be in pain and you can't make your own decision about your own life. Again, a deeply irrational person. So beyond that, he's vehemently against Planned Parenthood. He's vehemently against abortion. He wants the court to be involved in crafting EPA policy and Labor Department rules. So there was a previous case from a previous Supreme Court ruling where they basically said, all right, look, here's the bottom line. Unless something is clearly over the top unconstitutional, the Supreme Court is going to stay out of those matters for the executive branch and the various agencies. And the reasoning was the experts at the EPA know more about environmental policy and pollution than I do as a judge. The Labor Department knows much more about labor rules and regulations and the economy and jobs than I do as a judge. So this is what they said. This is what the Supreme Court decision was. This is precedent in the United States. What does Neil Gorsuch believe? No. I should be directly involved in crafting EPA policy and Labor Department policies and in all the different executive branches because whatever I don't like that they're doing, you're regulating pollution in a way that I think cracks down on how corporations should have a freedom to pollute, I'm going to strike that down because it is my political ideology to be on that side. So what's hilarious about these guys is they claim we're against activist judges because we don't want people to legislate from the bench. There's a difference between the legislature and the judicial branch. And all too often, liberal judges, they want to legislate from the bench. You're doing that, and you're admitting that's your preferred policy on issues like this. When it comes to the EPA, when it comes to the FDA, when it comes to the Labor Department, those are areas where you want to be directly involved in crafting policy because some things do and don't coincide with your philosophy and your ideology. So you are exactly what you accuse the liberals of being. This guy also donated thousands of dollars to Bush in 2003. So when we already knew that he was a disaster for his second run, there's very little else in terms of who he contributed to. But George W. Bush in 2003, again, you want to tell me that, I'm conservative and I'm principled, and George W. Bush ripped up the Constitution and threw it in the garbage. No more Fourth Amendment protection from unreasonable search and seizure. NSA gets by on everybody. Sets up an extra judicial prison with Guantanamo Bay. Forget about protection from cruel and unusual punishment. The list goes on. And these guys have the nerve to call themselves constitutionalists. And he's donating to somebody who is directly involved in dismantling the Constitution. So here's my response for Neil Gorsuch. Hell no. I would never let you become a Supreme Court justice. And the Democrats better not buckle. I want to see fight in them. I want to make sure that we do the right thing by the American people. Now, here you're going to have Donald Trump, and the Republicans, you're so obstructionist. You guys literally broke the filibuster record against Barack Obama. So you could take your crocodile tears about obstruction and shove them up your ass. I don't care about your deep hypocrisy and your clutching of your pearls. Because there's actually a fundamental difference between your obstruction and our obstruction. When you obstructed people, Obama, if anything, was too kind to you. He gave you moderate, centrist, vanilla milk toast judges that you should have been all over and you should have loved, like Merrick Garland for Supreme Court. So you obstructed when it was profoundly unreasonable to obstruct because the guy half agrees with you. But now you're going to appoint somebody who agrees with the Democrats and liberals and progressives and the American people, not at all. And you expect us to roll over and support that person? Oh, you'd have another thing coming if Justice Democrats were in charge. I would invent ways to obstruct this guy. They keep saying, well, look, in some instances, they've gotten rid of the filibuster. Now, for this, they haven't gotten rid of the filibuster yet, for the Supreme Court picks. But in some ways, they have gotten rid of the filibuster. For lower court picks, for example. I would still obstruct him. I'd find a way. I'd invent a new filibuster. I would do a hearing filibuster. When they have all these hearings and you got soon to be, hopefully not, Attorney General Jeff Sessions sitting there answering the questions, they would give the floor to me and I wouldn't yield. I would just keep talking until I'm dragged out of there in handcuffs. And there's a reason behind it. Because you want to talk so much about the issues and get all the issues out there and everything that this guy believes that the American people, that's going to make the news, and then they're going to listen to what you got to say. They're going to hear you say, remember when you said, quote, good people don't smoke marijuana, even though 58% of the American people want to legalize marijuana, and you're against that? You're against 58% of the American people, and you want to be the top lawyer in the country? Piss off. Remember when you said white civil rights attorney was, quote, a traitor to his race? Shouldn't the American people know that about you? Isn't that interesting about you? You think you were rejected for a federal judge position in 1986 because at the time other Republicans said, look, your history on race issues is too bad we can't even support you. And now you want to be Attorney General of the United States of America? You get all this stuff out there and you don't stop talking. Will you yield the floor? No, I won't. Thank you very much. Anyway, as I was saying, get dragged out of there in handcuffs. Do anything and everything to obstruct these people because they're going to frame it like, oh, you're the problem and you're the one who's being authoritarian. That's not true at all because when you look at the opinions and the beliefs of the American people, they don't agree with Neil Gorsuch. And Neil Gorsuch would do untold amounts of damage on this country. So you block them and you make clear I'm doing this for the American people because they agree with me, even if they don't realize they agree with me. They agree with me if they look at the issues. So you block them, you let them know the American people are on our side on this. And I wouldn't, in a million years, I wouldn't allow this guy to get through. I would do anything and everything to make sure that this guy doesn't get through. And if the Democrats can't fight on this, they're good for nothing and they can't fight on anything. Because you have, for a fucking year, you had the President Obama, obstructed. They broke a record. The Republicans broke a record in obstructing for that last seat. And that's a guy who won the popular vote by over 5 million votes. And then now you have a guy who lost the popular vote by damn near 3 million votes. And he's picking somebody whose positions are deeply unpopular. And now they want the Democrats to roll over. Watch me obstruct with a smile on my face. I told you this is what Justice Democrats are about. I told you when he does something wrong and he does something bad, President Trump, we're not going to give a fucking inch. We're not going to give a millimeter. We're going to stop him by any means necessary. We also hold him accountable, though. So if he wants to protect Social Security, if he wants to do infrastructure spending, if he wants to stop nation building, well, then we're going to hold him accountable. Hey, you said you're in favor of this, so are we. Let's work together. So in some ways, we are more bipartisan when it's for the American people, but in some ways, we are less bipartisan and we are more obstructionist because, again, it's for the American people and it's about the American people. So this is what we're going to do. Hell no to Neil Gorsuch. Any Democrat who buckles and votes for him, you're getting primaried.